The town of Willow Creek had always been a place where doors remained unlocked, neighbors greeted each other with warm smiles, and crime was nothing more than a distant headline from the big cities. Nestled in the heart of Virginia, it was the kind of town where life seemed frozen and time-safe, predictable and untouched by the darkness that lurked beyond its borders. At the center of this picture-perfect community was Daniel Whitmore and Emily Whitmore, a couple everyone admired. Daniel Whitmore was a respected financial consultant, known for his sharp mind and calm demeanor. Emily Whitmore, a former schoolteacher turned full-time mother, was the epitome of grace and charm. Together, they had built a life that many envied: a beautiful home, 2 young children, and a reputation as the ideal family. Then, there was Michael Carter, Daniel Whitmore's best friend since college, and an almost permanent fixture in their lives. A charismatic real estate agent with a knack for closing deals and turning heads, Michael Carter was the kind of man who could talk his way into or out of anything. The bond between Daniel Whitmore and Michael Carter was unbreakable, or so everyone thought. But beneath the surface of their seemingly perfect lives, something sinister was brewing. The first sign came in whispers. Muted conversations between neighbors who had noticed something off. Emily Whitmore, once the heart of every community gathering, had grown distant, her usual warmth replaced by a quiet tension. Daniel Whitmore, always composed, seemed more distracted, his usual routine subtly shifting. And Michael Carter. Well, Michael Carter was around more than ever. Then one night everything changed. A frantic 911 call shattered the peace of Willow Creek. 911, what's your emergency? My wife, she's gone, she's missing! Daniel Whitmore's voice was breathless, filled with desperation. The town awoke to a nightmare. Emily Whitmore had vanished without a trace, and soon, the secrets that lay buried beneath the surface of Willow Creek would come to light: secrets of betrayal, obsession, and a plan so twisted that no one could have seen it coming. The autumn air in Willow Creek carried a crisp chill, whispering through the oak trees that lined the quiet suburban streets. The golden hues of falling leaves painted a picturesque scene, masking the storm that had already begun to unravel beneath the surface. Inside the Whitmore household, the tension was palpable. Emily Whitmore had been distant for weeks, her once affectionate glances toward Daniel Whitmore now replaced with an unreadable coldness. She had grown restless, spending more nights out, claiming book club meetings or visits to friends. Daniel Whitmore, ever the composed husband, had noticed. He wasn't a fool. But suspicion was a slow-burning fire, and he had convinced himself that whatever was happening would pass until it didn't. The one person who had been a constant presence in their home, even more than usual, was Michael Carter. Michael Carter had always been the life of the party, the one who could make Daniel Whitmore laugh even in the worst of times. But lately, Daniel Whitmore had sensed something different. A flicker of something in the way Michael Carter spoke to Emily Whitmore, a stolen glance, a moment that lasted just a second too long. Emily Whitmore had made a mistake that had turned into something much more dangerous. It had started with innocent conversations, small confessions over coffee, lingering touches that neither of them acknowledged. But what began as a fleeting moment of weakness had spiraled into a full-fledged affair. Emily Whitmore and Michael Carter had crossed a line that could never be erased. And someone knew. Someone had seen them. The night Emily Whitmore disappeared was unremarkable until it wasn't. At 9:42 p.m., a neighbor recalled seeing her leave the house, dressed in a dark coat, her face obscured by the night. Her car was still in the driveway the next morning, but Emily Whitmore was gone. Daniel Whitmore's frantic 911 call came at 7:15 a.m. My wife, she's gone, she's missing. His voice was hoarse, on the verge of breaking. Her phone's here, her purse, she never left in her car. She wouldn't just leave our kids. The responding officers searched the house, the backyard, the surrounding streets. No forced entry, no signs of a struggle. Emily Whitmore had simply vanished, and in the days to come, as investigators peeled back the layers of her seemingly perfect life, they would discover a tangled web of deception, jealousy, and betrayal. One that led to a single chilling question. Had someone made sure Emily Whitmore would never be found? The woods behind Willow Creek stretched for miles, dense, isolated and silent except for the occasional rustle of leaves in the cold night air. It was here, far from the warm glow of streetlights and the watchful eyes of the town, that Emily Whitmore met her fate. The exact moment it happened would remain a mystery, but what followed left no room for doubt. A single set of tire tracks led to a clearing, the dirt uneven from where something or someone had been dragged. The air smelled of damp earth and decaying leaves, But beneath it, there was something else. Metallic. Faint, but unmistakable. Blood. It was splattered against the rough bark of an old oak tree, pooling in the grass where the struggle had ended. But there was no body. Just the chilling remnants of violence. Emily Whitmore had been here, and now she was gone. Emily Whitmore never saw it coming. She had stepped out of her house that night believing she was meeting Michael Carter one last conversation. A final decision about their affair. She was done. The guilt had become unbearable, and she had made a choice. But Michael Carter had made one too. Somewhere in the darkness, hidden by the towering trees, he waited. Maybe she sensed something in those final seconds, a shift in the air, the way the wind carried an unnatural stillness. Maybe she turned, ready to speak, before the first blow landed. The autopsy would later suggest blunt force trauma, a single deliberate strike to the back of the head, quick, precise, calculated. No one heard her scream. 2 days after Emily Whitmore's disappearance, a hiker stumbled upon the scene. At first he thought it was an animal attack, until he saw the streaks of red against the tree trunk, the drag marks leading away from the clearing. His frantic 911 call was barely coherent. The police arrived within the hour, their flashlights cutting through the misty morning haze. What they found sent a ripple of unease through the town. No body, no murder weapon. Only blood too much to suggest Emily Whitmore could still be alive. Detectives cordoned off the area, marking every disturbed leaf and misplaced twig. They found a single earring, the delicate silver piece identified by Daniel Whitmore as belonging to his wife. Her phone was still at home, untouched. Her purse left behind. Whoever had taken her hadn't done it in a rush. This was planned. The town of Willow Creek, once so safe, was now the center of a chilling mystery. Emily Whitmore was gone, and someone in their midst knew exactly where she was. The hunt for the truth had begun. The disappearance of Emily Whitmore sent shockwaves through Willow Creek. What had once been a quiet town was now swarmed with flashing police lights, reporters, and whispers of dark secrets. Detective James Holloway, a seasoned investigator with a sharp eye for deception, was assigned to the case. He had seen it all: missing persons, domestic disputes, even cold-blooded murder, but something about this case unsettled him. His partner, Detective Sarah Calloway, was relentless, known for her ability to break down alibis and sniff out lies. Together, they combed through every lead, determined to uncover the truth. Daniel Whitmore was the first suspect. The husband is always the first place to look. But his alibi was airtight. Security footage showed him at home all night, pacing anxiously in his driveway. He had no motive, at least not one strong enough to make his wife vanish. A robbery gone wrong? Investigators found no signs of forced entry at the Whitmore house. Emily Whitmore's valuables were untouched. If someone had taken her, it wasn't for money. A voluntary disappearance? Some speculated that Emily Whitmore had simply left town until the blood was found in the woods. No one leaves that way and never returns. The town held its breath as investigators followed a twisting path of false leads and unanswered questions. It was Michael Carter who cracked first. Detectives pulled his phone records, revealing late-night calls to Emily Whitmore leading up to her disappearance. At first, he claimed they were just friends, but inconsistencies in his story piled up. Then, the dam broke. A piece of surveillance footage surfaced, a grainy clip from a gas station near the woods. At 10:17 p.m., on the night Emily Whitmore vanished, Michael Carter's car could be seen pulling into the lot. In the trunk, something large wrapped in a tarp. Michael Carter swore it was just camping gear. Detective James Holloway wasn't convinced. As they dug deeper, they found a second piece of damning evidence. Emily Whitmore's blood in Michael Carter's garage. Traces of it, faint but undeniable, soaked into the concrete floor. With mounting pressure, Michael Carter finally broke. But his confession wasn't what they expected. "I didn't do it alone." The courtroom was packed. Spectators, reporters, and the families of both the victim and the accused filled every seat. This wasn't just a trial. It was the event that had shattered a once idyllic town. The prosecutor, Elliot Grayson, laid out the case with brutal precision. Motive: Michael Carter had been having an affair with Emily Whitmore. She wanted to end it, but he wouldn't let her. Means: he lured her into the woods, striking her with a blunt object. The evidence, the blood, the phone records, the surveillance footage was irrefutable. But the most shocking detail? Michael Carter wasn't the only one involved. Michael Carter's defense attorney tried to spin the story, a crime of passion, a moment of rage, not premeditated murder. They painted Michael Carter as a man who had lost control, not a cold-blooded killer. The gas station footage placed him near the scene at the right time. But the most shocking detail? Michael Carter wasn't the only one involved. Michael Carter's defense attorney tried to spin the story, a crime of passion, a moment of rage, not premeditated murder. They painted Michael Carter as a man who had lost control, not a cold-blooded killer. But then came the twist. Michael Carter, in a desperate attempt to lessen his sentence, made a deal. He named his accomplice, Daniel Whitmore. The room gasped. The very man who had tearfully pleaded for his wife's return was now accused of orchestrating her murder. Michael Carter claimed Daniel Whitmore had known about the affair and planned the perfect revenge, convincing Michael Carter to lure Emily Whitmore into the woods, where Daniel Whitmore would be waiting. But was he telling the truth, or was this one final betrayal? The verdict. After weeks of testimonies, forensic evidence, and emotional outbursts, the jury reached a decision. Michael Carter, guilty of second-degree murder, life in prison. Daniel Whitmore, not guilty, lack of evidence. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Had justice been served, or had the real mastermind walked free? As Michael Carter was led away in handcuffs, he looked at Daniel Whitmore, his eyes filled with hatred. "You got away with it," he whispered. Daniel Whitmore said nothing. But the way he smiled as he walked out of the courthouse told a different story. People locked their doors earlier. They no longer trusted the familiar faces they had once greeted every morning. Rumors about what really happened to Emily Whitmore lingered in hushed conversations at grocery stores and coffee shops. Some believed Daniel Whitmore had gotten away with murder. Others saw Michael Carter as the sole villain, a man destroyed by obsession. But one thing was clear. Willow Creek would never heal completely. Emily Whitmore's parents, Robert and Linda Thompson, moved away 6 months after the verdict. Staying in Willow Creek, where their daughter's memory was stained by scandal and betrayal, was unbearable. Her sister, Rachel Thompson, refused to let the world forget. She dedicated herself to advocating for victims of domestic abuse and betrayal, ensuring that Emily Whitmore's story would never be just another unsolved mystery. As for Daniel Whitmore, he sold their house and disappeared. Some said he moved to another state. Others whispered that he was still in town, watching from the shadows. Detective James Holloway and Detective Sarah Calloway closed the case, but the weight of it never left them. James Holloway, a man who had always believed in the justice system, found himself questioning it. Had he let a murderer walk free? The image of Daniel Whitmore's smirk as he left the courtroom haunted him. Sarah Calloway, hardened by years of crime scenes, couldn't shake the feeling that they had only uncovered half the truth. Neither of them could prove it, but they both knew. Daniel Whitmore had played the game perfectly. In the end, the case of Emily Whitmore wasn't just a story of murder, it was a warning. The facade of the perfect life. To the outside world, Emily Whitmore and Daniel Whitmore had the perfect marriage. But behind closed doors, secrets fester. Love turns to resentment. Passion becomes obsession. And sometimes betrayal ends in blood. Justice isn't always what it seems. Michael Carter paid for his crime, but did the true mastermind walk free? The law deals in evidence, not in suspicion. And in some cases, the truth is buried with the victim. The world moved on. The town of Willow Creek carried on. But the whispers never stopped. And neither did the fear that somewhere out there, Daniel Whitmore was still watching, still waiting, and maybe, just maybe, ready to do it again.